Good evening guys, Lord of Pontail here with another video for Rise of Empires, Ice and Fire. Today in this video I am going to be talking about dragon buildings. So I did a video last week on the strategy buildings, things like the enhancement camps, and they use crystal as part of their requirements and resources for upgrades, and similarly the dragon buildings will also require crystal, unfortunately guys, so that's going to mean more gold to be spent on crystal. As I said before, that's why it's really important that you are constantly have those crystal workshops working 24/7. Let's look at the dragon buildings then. When are you going to get them? Well, for those players that are just starting out in the game, you're not going to get your Dragon Shout Temple until you reach castle level 19. That's why if you're going to develop farms and use them in your Reign of Chaos seasons in defensive positions, you're going to want to develop them up to level 19 so that you can get the Dragon Shout Temple activated. Because when you get the Dragon Shout Temple, that will also unlock this building here, which is Dragon Slayer. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but it's a defensive building for your castle. What else will you unlock? Well, you're going to unlock at level 19 the Black Dragon Layers. This is the first type of Dragon Shout that you will have access to. Let's run through the different Dragon Shouts that are going to be available to you once you've maxed out all and unlocked all of the layers. So if we click onto Dragon Shout Temple and then click View, this will tell you the different shouts available. There is a total of 5, and there is a layer for each type of shout. So you start with unlocking the Black Shout, then onto a Hellfire Shout, which is the red layer, Illumination Shout, which is the white layer, which I'm upgrading at the moment. Then you have the Blue Dragon Poison Shout, which is the blue layer, and Freezing Shout, which is from the Frost layer. What do each of them do? Black Dragon Shout, as it says here, this demolishes the enemy's fortification. Whether you've got a shield up or not, it can zero a castle. If we click on the icon here, it will give you information. Can be used to attack enemy town, reducing their fortification by 1200. Most lower level castles say probably I think level 13 or 14 or lower, the fortification won't be higher than that. Potentially you can zero them with just one shout, depending on how much people have upgraded their fortress and also the level of their castle, and if it's a high level castle, also their master defense research. You can get fortifications easily over 2000, and so they're going to be harder to demolish. Potentially you're definitely going to need more than one hit with a Black Dragon Shout. Onto a Hellfire Shout. The red dragon layer. Flaming Dragon Shout can burn 5% to 15% enemy resources and crystals, burning up to 1 million resources and 2,000 crystals. Is this going to be useful? Or, you know, burning 1 million resources, I'm pretty sure most experienced players are not going to cry about that. We lose more than 1 million resources just from one hit in a throne battle. 2,000 crystals, not ideal if you're trying to save your crystals for specific things. But again, you can make 2,000 crystals back by just doing the hourly challenge second box twice in a row, 2 hours in a row. So it's not going to do a massive amount of critical damage to any of your opponents. Illumination Shout. Break the fog of war and scout enemies. This will disable enemy castle anti-scout. During the disabled period, you can scout the enemy's information, and the disabled period lasts 45 minutes, does not stack. So once you use it once for the 45 minutes, that's it. Interesting. Again, if you're in a Reign of Chaos battle, or if you're in and you want to know potentially what you're up against, it could be useful. And if you're obviously for kill events, you might be able to find out more about your opponents. It's a useful function, but again, as you'll see in a minute, are you going to be prepared to use a lot of resources, including crystal, to make these shouts? Blue Dragon Poison Shout. Poison the enemy's defending troops. Poison Shout. During the period, the troops in the enemy base will be slowly injured and enter the medical tent. The pollution state lasts for 120 minutes and does not stack. This is an interesting one, I think, because you're sending troops to the medical tent. That means that, again, like for instance in a KE event, if you're looking to do maximum damage, well, the maximum damage is when people have their medical tents full and they're just troops are dying in their account. That's the most critical section. Maybe hitting them with a blue dragon shout is also going to be a distraction for them, and it lasts for 2 hours. That could, potentially incapacitate someone. Have I ever actually seen a blue dragon shout in use? I don't think I have. Or maybe once or twice. It's not a common use. And then the last one is freezing shout. This is quite a cool one. Reduces enemy march speed. Again, it's time based. So freezing shout reduces enemy march speed by 400%. Lasts 30 minutes. Does not stack. So you're going to slow down the marching speed by 400%. I'm sure lots of you can think of decent uses for this. Again, Reign of Chaos battles. If you've got a good defensive structure with your tiles and you've got players that are having to march 150, 200 kilometers as they're taking tiles towards your alliance center, or maybe even they've set a destroyer shout and they're quite close to you and they've got a couple of strong players. Using this freezing shout, you could potentially slow them down enough. If you've got enough players in your alliance that have it activated, you could slow people down enough so that you can reorganize your defense and hold them off actually reaching your alliance center. I think that has a lot of useful elements to it, the freezing shout, for sure. But unfortunately, it's the last layer that you unlock. Let's have a look in more detail first at the actual Dragon Shout temple itself. So we look in details and more information. As usual, 25 levels to it, and the higher the level, the more power the building will have. As you can see, once you get to about level 13, you're getting some nice increases on the bower here. And this is a building that you definitely want to upgrade on building days to maximise your Clash of Province points. All the way up to this top level, you're getting 13, 14 million points. 13 or 14 million points, base points from the power upgrade on this. So that's really useful. Higher the level, the more scroll storage you can have. So that's the amount of shouts that you can have. Shout queue is always 1 because you can only release one shout, activate one shout at a time. And then the last 2 columns, we'll have to scroll back up. So this will reduce the gold and crystal cost on producing the shouts. Again, so that's useful. We know that crystal costs a lot to produce and you want to use it for a lot of things. So upgrading this is always going to be beneficial. As you can see, I've got mine at level 25. Dragon Slayer. Why is this important? Well, the Dragon Slayer is where you can manufacture bolts, and these bolts are your defensive system against opposing players' dragon shouts. If you click in here, Dragon Slayer bolt count increases with the level of the Dragon Slayer building. Why is that important? Well, each shout has a power level, which we'll look at in a second. And for instance, I think with the black dragon shout, the maximum power is 5. Let's have a quick look. Oh no, it's 6, sorry. So it's 6. That means that if you have Dragon Slayer maxed at 25, and you can have 63 bolts stored in your Slayer, then an opponent will have to launch 11 Black Dragon Shouts against you for you to run out of bolts and then become vulnerable. And that's obviously not even before you could start refilling your fortification with diamonds. So having a maximum of 63 bolts is going to be, a strong defensive stance if you're against someone who has like the lower level dragons. The other thing is that it will also increase Dragon Shout conjuring speed, and it will improve the resource efficiency increase when researching Dragon Shouts, which means it makes it slightly cheaper on the resources that you're using when you're manufacturing the Dragon Shouts. As you see, that gives a good buff, 50% on both. How do you make the bolts? Because obviously if you get hit by a shout, you're going to have a reduction in bolts. If you click onto production here, it will tell you how many bolts you've got. I've got 48 at the moment, and it says consume a certain number of Dragon Slayer bolts to fend off enemy dragon attacks. When there are not enough Dragon Slayer bolts, there's a chance of fending off a dragon attack by consuming all the remaining bolts, but when all bolts are exhausted, the dragon attack won't be repelled. And if you look at production, you will need a worker to make a bolt, so please bear that in mind if you're going into Reign of Chaos battles. Make sure you've got at least one worker free if you're going to utilise dragons or potentially be attacked by dragon shouts. You're going to need to use crystal, but not too much. 990 will get you 15 bolts. Again, bear in mind that I've got the production efficiency maxed. Just under 1 million ale. You're going to need gold and also charcoal. So this is important. This is where maybe for some of you in the lower levels, you're wondering where where other elements of the game involve charcoal. It's involved in the production of bolts and shouts. So that is your Dragon Slayer and the Dragon Bolts. Onto the Black Dragon layer. This is unlocked at castle level 19, so you can have access to it at castle level 19 as soon as you've unlocked the temple. And if we look into the production, what's needed? Well, again, so for any of the Dragon Shouts, you will need a worker who will come to the building to produce the shout for you. You can see I can accommodate up to 25 shouts, and crystal, it's going to require, for me, it requires 666 crystal, 769,000 gold, 1.6 million charcoal, and 666,000, 2/3 of a million food. Again, please bear in mind for those of you that are at lower levels, it's more expensive to produce these shouts because you haven't upgraded your Dragon Slayer. And then, so on the details icon, if we look here and go into more information, you've got some okay power increases the higher level you go up, and then you'll see that you can increase the Dragon Shout conjuring speed, and the resource efficiency becomes better the higher the level as well. Again, up to 50/50, so it's worth upgrading your layers as quickly as you can to the maximum level that you can. And on the right here is destructive power. You'll see that as you start the first 4 levels, there is a destructive power of 1. What that means is, if you fire a Dragon Shout at an opposing player, they will only require 1 bolt to stop the shout reaching their castle. And then, but as you increase the levels up, it will increase up to a maximum destructive power of 6. Where it gets interesting, and the format of each layer is similar to that. In terms of the capacity, you need a worker to produce a bolt, crystal, gold, charcoal, and then this bottom element changes depending on the layer. What also changes is the higher as you progress through the levels of layers, so from black to red to white to blue to frost, the destructive power increases. So if you look here, the red dragon maxes out at 10 destructive powers for a level 25 red dragon layer. So to compare it to the black dragon, I would need 7, potentially, if someone wasn't, again, replenishing their bolts in their account, which they can do, I'd like to emphasise. But if they weren't, it would require you to take to just use 7 red dragon shouts to remove all the bolts, and then potentially you could use your black dragon to, because there wouldn't be any bolts to stop it, then you could then use a black dragon to reduce the fortification power on the opponent if you were looking to zero them. Just as a comparison as well, so I'm currently working on my white dragon layer, and I'm up to level 18 with this, and as you can see now, it jumps, the destructive power jumps up again, so that once you reach level 25, the destructive power is 20, and it just increases again. Unfortunately, I don't have the blue and frost levels upgraded yet. I focused on my strategy buildings, the enhancement camps, spending my crystal on that first, and now I'm doing the dragon layers, and that is what most players do. If you notice, I did the strategy building video first, and I did emphasize in that video the importance of doing these strategy buildings because of the combat buffs they give, which are going to impact your ability in battles. We all know we battle more, we siege more than sending shouts out, or scenarios where you would want to use a shout. Quite often that is just in Reign of Chaos battles. I believe from players that have unlocked the either the blue or the frost dragon, that it does increase the maximum power, increases up to 50. So you'd only have to launch two of those dragons potentially to completely decimate the stock of Slayer bolts in your opponent, and then you would again be able to use a black shout to zero them if they're not replenishing their bolts. When can you unlock the other dragon layers? So as I've said, black is unlocked at level 19. Then you can unlock red dragon when your black layer is reached level 20. You will be able to unlock the white dragon layer when your red dragon layer has reached level 23. And then after that, you have to max out your white dragon at level 25 to unlock the blue layer, and you have to max out the blue layer at level 25 to unlock the frost layer. And then that's it, you'll have all 5 layers unlocked and ready to go. As I've talked about, the primary use of dragon shouts is to reduce the fortification value of a castle. That's how most people use them, because most of them have access to this black dragon reasonably early in the game. And I know, for instance, there are lots of different strategies for using black dragons in Reign of Chaos. For instance, if you've got an enemy that are making a tile chain towards your Alliance Center 2 from Zone 1, you might want, and they're using like lower level farms to do that, for instance, you might want to shout them, because you can travel, the shout will travel that distance quickly. You can still stay in your defensive position at your AC1, and you can zero those castles to slow them down, making a tile chain to your Alliance Center 2, for instance. Other ways that I've used a black dragon shout, I've used it to, for instance, if we were in Clash of Province and it was a Saturday, we were doing kill event, and there were opponents who were doing Reign of Chaos, and some castles were unshielded, but you couldn't hit them easily because there was a tile structure there. If there was a low level farm that had been placed in that defensive area in the tiles, I have used shouts and shouted the farm so that I could then get closer to my target that I wanted to hit, and still it's safe in the knowledge that actually by placing my own castle into that tile structure, you're getting more time. Well, it's going to take, if someone's going to try and attack you back or retaliate when you hit your target, you're going to have more time available to move, because no one can actually hit you if you're in that structure. They can't teleport near you. So that would just be that would be a top tip from me for those of you that are doing kill events against other states that are in Reign of Chaos seasons 1 to 4. That is really everything to do with the dragon buildings. As I say, I think it's really most players are not going to unlock white, blue and frost until much later into their game development, just because again you need a lot of gold and to generate the crystal, and you're restricted by how much crystal you can generate because you've only got these 6 furnace workshops. And yes, you can rush production, but you don't always, obviously that does reduce the efficiency. So yes, okay, if you've got a crazy amount of gold, you can constantly fill up your workshops and rush production, but it's not going to be a very efficient use of that gold. But that is one way that you could do it. And that's really everything I wanted to talk about with the dragon buildings. I hope you found it helpful and informative, and now you know what each one is going to do for you, and you know how those dragons, what those abilities those dragons have when you do unlock the different layers. It's definitely an interesting element to the game, dragons, and maybe it could have been, maybe there could be a stronger element to the game based on the fact that obviously those dragons are present in all the kind of imagery of the game and everything else. So it's a shame that they don't have a bigger purpose, I would say, but that's just one of those things, I guess. So thank you very much. This is being recorded late on a Sunday night because I'm back to work and I've had a really busy week, so I apologise that there's not been quite so many videos the last few days. Next week in my main account and a couple of other accounts, well, it's Warlord Season Hero Return event, and I need a final duplicate for Warlord in this account and 2 other accounts as well, Maverick and Pond Farm. I'll be doing a video tomorrow night on my Warlord's recruitment, so we'll see how we get on with trying for him in 3 different accounts. Hopefully I will get him. I will be praying to the recruitment gods and I might get him first time. As we all saw, I didn't get much luck with doing the Skybreaker Hero Return event in my Pond Solo account last week, so I think, come on game, you've got to give me a bit of balance there. So thanks. Please keep an eye out for that video coming up tomorrow, and I will also be doing the videos as promised on Eden as well as we enter the last 3 weeks of our Eden season. I've built up a reasonable knowledge on the mechanics of the gameplay and things, so I want to kind of pass that on to you guys. I know a lot of you are really keen to find out about that. So thank you very much for all the support on the channel, guys. I really appreciate it. Please don't forget to subscribe, ring that bell, like, share in game with your Alliance friends and others in states, and place any comments that you have in the section below. And I will see you soon.